And today I have another true crime video for you, and this time we're going to do the second half of the video on an intimate partner violence case from Maryland in 2015. And this time we're going to talk about the murder of Karlyn Ramirez. And so this is a quote from True Crime Daily. Karlyn was a very well-loved young lady, a new mother, a new wife, and had a bright career as a soldier. This is according to Sergeant Poole. You can't explain or imagine that someone so loving and caring, something this tragic and senseless could happen to them. Karlyn was one of those people who would light up a room. When she walked in, she was vibrant, joyful, and always ready to make you laugh. Her family would describe her as beautiful inside and out. She was her mother Susan's pride and joy. Her sister Roxana describes Karlyn as her soulmate. And the family, they see Vale, her daughter, as a piece of Karlyn for them to love and cherish. So Karlyn grew up in Del Rio, Texas. She was quiet and timid, though by high school she became more courageous. She was a thrill seeker, according to her mom. While in college, she decided to leave and enlist in the U.S. Army. Her parents tried to sway her from the Army, but she had made up her mind. She was eventually dispatched to South Korea as a private first class. In Korea, she started doing mixed martial arts. Through her time in the Army, Karlyn proved to be more than merely adjusted to military life, but thriving in it. While in Korea, she met and fell in love with her husband, Staff Sergeant Malik Kearney. After Korea, she moved back to the U.S. and was stationed in Maryland at Fort Meade. She was happy at her new job. Karlyn Ramirez, 24 then, would now have been 31. She and her husband Malik Kearney, who is now 41, were U.S. Army soldiers. Karlyn Ramirez was stationed at Fort Meade and Kearney at Fort Jackson in South Carolina. Kearney was a first-class sergeant. Karlyn's sister Roxana describes Kearney as Karlyn's opposite, her ideal partner, someone perfect for her. She was reportedly a cervical cancer survivor. She was not expecting to be fertile, so she was surprised when she found herself pregnant. Following her service in Korea, Karlyn was offered a classified top security position in Maryland with the U.S. National Security Agency, with the U.S. Army at Fort Meade, Maryland. Even her mother had no idea what went on at work for Karlyn. It was a suitable job for a thrill-seeking person like Karlyn. Karlyn loved her job. She also found herself even happier after having her daughter Vale. Karlyn's townhouse was located on Millstone Court off base in Severn, Maryland, which is part of Anne Arundel County, Maryland. It is a location commonly occupied by military families. When Karlyn's sister Roxanne resided in the townhouse with her, a strange event occurred that scared Roxanne. Over several weeks when Karlyn was away from home, Roxanne recalls returning home from work at about 2 in the morning. When she arrived home, the door was open, the dog was let out, and the TV was turned on. At the time, Karlyn, her sister, was in Texas, and no one else holds the key to the townhouse. Roxanne grabs a knife and assesses all the rooms in the house, but nothing comes of it. When she shared this with Karlyn, Karlyn admitted to having a similar incident occur, but she brushed it off with an excuse about maintenance going into her apartment sometimes. No, Karlyn. Eventually, Roxana moved back to Texas, and Karlyn's best friend Marissa moved into the townhouse. For a while, everything seemed fine, but then Karlyn called her mom and sister one fateful night. On an evening of August 24th, Karlyn reportedly called her mother and sister and seemed out of character, unusual, and quite out of sorts. Roxanne and Susan described her as hyperventilating with a panic panic attack. According to her sister Roxanne, she said, "I don't know what is wrong. I don't feel right. I don't feel safe. Do you think my baby knows I love her?" Roxanne goes on to explain her reaction to this when she says, "I am like, why are you talking like this? What happened?" To which her sister responded, "I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know." Her mother, Suzanne, talks about that night on the phone and her daughter saying she was having a panic attack. She asked Karlyn what was wrong, and she said, "I can't discuss it, but, because of her work, Susan automatically assumed that it was something that was related to work." Once Karlyn had calmed down a bit, her mom, as always, said to her daughter, before hanging up, "I love you, always," not knowing that this may have been the last time she would hear from her daughter again, and indeed it was. Her sister Roxanne says, "I did not feel comfortable that night when we hung up, and I couldn't sleep." She says she texted her, was able to see she had read the message, received no response, and that was the last conversation she had with Karlyn. The night of her murder, her concerned mother Susan says, "I called her. She didn't answer. I called her again," said Susan. "She didn't answer. I texted her. She didn't answer." The following day, at roughly 8 a.m., maintenance workers saw 2 dogs running loose. When they attempted to confine the dogs, they ran into an open door of the townhouse. They went to the front of the townhouse to speak with the owner. They knocked, but no one answered. This concerned the maintenance staff. They notified the police of their growing concerns, and upon police arrival, they discovered the body of Karlyn Ramirez, who had been shot several times and passed away the night before. And with her was her 4-month-old baby, unharmed. Some reports say that when police found her, they also thought at first that her daughter was dead. The morning after her death, the 2 officers show up on Susan's door to deliver her the devastating news. While Karlyn's sister, Roxanne, learns this news through social media, chat messages from her brother. The murder. She was discovered August 24th, 2015. This is when she was killed. Karlyn was found dead in her upstairs master bedroom. The time of death is estimated at 9:45 p.m. the previous day, and the cause, 3 bullet wounds at close range. According to Susan Ramirez, police believed the killer is likely someone known to Karlyn, especially since nothing from her townhouse was stolen, no forced entry, making it likely that she let the killer into the house. They likely knew Karlyn was home by herself as well. Officials say the murder of Karlyn Ramirez was methodically plotted by Kearney and his mistress. The slaying took place in Karlyn Ramirez's Maryland townhouse in Severn. Following the murder, Kearney left their unarmed daughter in Karlyn's arms. I would say he did this because he was trying not to implicate himself by alerting anybody that the daughter was there with a dead mother, because how would he have known that other than being the perpetrator of the crime? So that's my theory. At the time of the murder, Kearney was stationed at Fort Jackson in South Carolina. His girlfriend, Mistress Delgado, diligently tracked their gas mileage and purchased gas cans so he would not need to stop for fuel on the drive back. He also took back roads as much as he could in an effort to minimize his risk of being tracked. The drive to Severn took Kearney 7 hours. He shot his wife 3 times in close range before leaving the scene to return to Fort Jackson. He also tried to stage it as a sexual assault. It makes you sick. Anne Arundel County Police Chief Tim Altamar said, "I don't know how a human being could leave his own child. The baby could have died. It was a monstrous act." Early on in the investigation, investigators early on had difficulty establishing motive. Cops initially had very little to go off. They looked into her roommate cases, so investigators had to interview hundreds of people around the country, as well as follow-up interviews. With her husband stationed in South Carolina and an alibi that checked out of him being there, while he was a person of interest, he was not initially a suspect. According to Sergeant Poole, they were a newly married couple. There was no separation agreement. However, there was a bit of tension because he was stationed in South Carolina. During the investigation, Susan had only met her son-in-law on 2 occasions and was not very familiar with him. After Karlyn's death, she interacts with Kearney, given the impression that he is quiet and respectful. The roommate at the time of her death was with her daughter in Washington State visiting family. Karlyn's roommate, her friend Marissa, had her own little girl. According to Susan, she and Karlyn were best buds. Prior to Marissa, her sister Roxanne had lived there in the townhouse with her. Karlyn's townhouse is an area considered very safe, a 600-unit community near Fort Meade, Maryland. Charges. Kearney was charged with, first, interstate travel to commit domestic violence, resulting in death in violation of 18 U.S.C. 2261, and the second one, discharge of a firearm in relation to a crime of violence as charged in count 1, resulting in death in violation of 18 U.S.C. 924. Kearney tried to get both counts dismissed by claiming the murder did not constitute a predicate crime of violence to sustain these charges. The district, of course, denied this motion, superseding indictment including a charge of aiding and abetting for both counts that violate the statute. This legal statute makes it unlawful for a person to travel in interstate commerce with the intent to kill, injure, harass, or intimidate a spouse, intimate partner, or dating partner, and, in the course of or as a result of such travel or presence, commit or attempt to commit a crime of violence against that spouse, intimate partner, or dating partner. In 2016, court ordered by a federal judge to return Delgado and Kearney from their stations to Maryland to face the murder and related charges in the death of his wife and fellow soldier. Denied bail at his court hearing roughly around Tuesday, October 18th, 2016. So, 37-year-old Dolores Delgado from San Antonio, Texas, pled guilty to assisting Kearney in slaying his wife. According to prosecutor statements, August 8th, 2017, Delgado pled guilty to interstate travel to commit domestic violence resulting in death, a federal charge Kearney also faces. Okay, so Delgado provided Kearney the weapon, the vehicle, and she remained in his apartment to help him maintain his alibi while he was out doing his business. She also disposed of the murder weapon afterwards. Oh, this bitch. The trial lasted for 11 days. The prosecutor laid out the elaborate plot orchestrated by Kearney and his mistress, Dolores Delgado. Using the mistress's vehicle and gun, Kearney killed his wife only a month into their marriage. Between the physical distance and Kearney's cheating, the couple began having some marital problems. A mere 2 weeks into their marriage, Kearney showed up in Maryland, unannounced, seeking reconciliation between them, and this interaction prompted Ramirez to request a no-contact order against Kearney and to make plans and begin filing the divorce proceedings. Kearney returned to South Carolina and then planned how he would murder his wife. "If I can't have you, no one can." And I added in my head when I wrote this, because I'm a little bitch. Because, I mean, if that's your response to life, you're a coward. Anyways, sorry, that's side note. He drove over 7 hours to Maryland using Delgado's vehicle and the gas cans. He was trying not to draw attention to himself, so that's like one thing he did right, kind of, but whatever. Kearney's mistress. Let's see. Yeah. Kearney spoke quickly and with very little emotion. A bullshit quote from the defendant: "There is no moment that I don't miss Karlyn. The love that I have for her grows stronger as each day passes," he said, to which the Judge Russell responded, "I don't believe you." And despite it all, Kearney maintains his innocence. In court, when Delgado gave her testimony, she openly sobbed. She talked about dreams she had, nightmares of Kearney choking her and others, of getting arrested. Well, no shit, of course you're gonna get arrested. In Delgado's testimony, she said she was upset Kearney was ingratiating himself with his wife's family following the murder. According to Mistress Delgado, if he couldn't have his family back together, no man was going to raise his daughter. He was. While visiting Karlyn's grave, Karlyn's family welcomed Kearney, not yet aware of what he was responsible for. This upset Kearney's mistress, who said, "I was upset he was playing this role of poor him, a widower, and letting her family comfort him. They should have been the ones being comforted," which is rich coming from the woman who aided him in the crime that he committed. That's rich, bitch. The prosecution combed through Delgado's text messages and screenshots around the time of the murder, citing a specific meme she sent Kearney several days prior to the homicide. It said, "Remember, if we get caught, you are deaf and I don't speak English." And it provided a visual of a minion from Despicable Me. As Kearney drove to Maryland and murdered his wife, Delgado remained on Kearney's couch in South Carolina. She scoured his phone and discovered pictures of other women becoming angry over it, though she didn't leave him after this. Also, I mean, what did you expect? You're the person he's cheating on his wife with. You have nothing to complain about, you know? She maintained a sexual relationship with Kearney up until being arrested in Texas. When discussing the murder, Delgado said, "I realized something bad had happened, and I should have done something about it," which was acknowledging her own guilt about her part in the death of Karlyn Ramirez. Honey, you did something about it, alright, just not to prevent it. Delgado took a plea deal for her part. So this is something the defense said, which is like weak sauce. I'm just saying. Kearney's lawyer, Teresa Whalen, she's whaling out. Just making shit up. Well, that was made up. She told the judge, "We're all complicated." She insisted her client had redeeming qualities. Redeeming qualities. Okay. She spoke of his service to the country, including tours of duty in the Middle East and more than 30 awards from the military. She also noted his PTSD and his abusive childhood. Let him still have a glimmer of hope that he will do more than simply be warehoused, Whalen said. Sentencing. Reports from the end of November of 2018 said that Kearney was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, as it should be, for the murder of his wife in 2015. The case is chilling, given how Kearney showed little to no emotion or remorse when the judge relayed this information to him. The judge characterized Kearney as dangerous, predatory, and someone in need of mental health treatment. Judge Russell was also able to add on 10 more years to Kearney's sentence for the use of a gun in his heinous crime. He stated that the case was so severe, the sentencing level guidelines for Kearney were off the charts. As the Ramirez family left court that Friday, they indicated they believed justice had been served. Chief Altomer praised the work of his department and federal investigators who pieced together the chilling plot. It was a legendary bit of investigative work at every angle, he said. In response to sentencing, U.S. Attorney Robert Hur said, "I'm very, very grateful that we were able to do justice in this case and that Mr. Kearney will be punished for his heinous crimes, and of course we're very glad for the result, and our hearts remain heavy. We are obviously continuing to think of the victims in this case was sentenced to life in prison for the first count and 120 months for the second count, 10 years. His years in prison concurrently served. The judge also ordered Kearney to pay $492,000 in restitution to Karlyn's family. Kearney sought an appeal, of course, because he's that guy, contending the district court for denying his motion to dismiss both counts based on the government not proving it was a crime of violence. So this man really dug his heels in here. He also challenged some of the evidence from trial in accordance with the interstate violence charge, a violation of 18 U.S.C. 2261. He was charged with traveling in interstate commerce with intent to kill his spouse, using a dangerous weapon to accomplish this crime. The district court indicated that murder, as he committed, involves intent to kill or inflict bodily harm, which negates his claims that he accomplished this crime without the use of violence or physical force, the very crime Kearney pled guilty for. They rejected his claims. He was also charged for criminalization of use or carrying of a firearm while committing criminal violence, which relates back to the second count, 924, crime of interstate travel to commit domestic violence leading to death. The crime of violence being determined based on the first count, based on the fact that the murder is a violent charge. Kearney remained where he was sentenced. He also argued that federal rules of evidence 404 and 403 were violated when Delgado's testimony regarding her relationship with him and claims of violence against her. However, he made no attempt to object to her testimony at the time it was happening, so this claim was negated as well. Outside of this testimony, sufficient testimony and physical evidence against Kearney was present beyond Delgado, meaning his claim would have had no bearing on the outcome of his trial. Exclusion of website printouts on potential lane closures on I-95 the week of the murder, that when he drove to Maryland and back to South Carolina, was within a certain window of time that varied from the testimony, claiming this information undercut testimony and would have been relevant to his defense during trial. However, this information was determined as hearsay and not relevant. He also made claims that the court's evidence was not sufficient enough to have him convicted. So then the response from the victim's family: my pain would likely give him a level of satisfaction he doesn't deserve to walk. He doesn't deserve to walk among us. He is a cold, callous, calculating sociopath, says Susan Ramirez, her mother. I implore your honor not to release this monster. Ramirez's mother choked back tears as she told Judge George Russell III that Kearney saw little value in human life and urged him not to show mercy, keep this man away from society. He has no respect for women. He's a user and abuser. To honor my daughter is to raise her daughter as best I can. And then lastly, she recounted how Kearney came to her daughter's funeral and stared at the coffin, telling her